It is 6:32. A Baltimore police officer was shot outside his home, and now he is fighting for his life.
This morning, we'll explain how this brazen violence unfolded.
We have team coverage. Mike Chu is at Shock Trauma, updating us on the officer's condition. But we start with Kimberly Eaton, live at the scene where the chaos began. Kimberly?
And Lynn, behind us here, you can see a single patrol car holding the crime scene this morning, now hours into the manhunt for a shooter who fired on that police sergeant while he was standing outside his house here in Northeast Baltimore. Sergeant Isaac Carrington still on life support Friday morning as police and now feds join the search for a masked man who reportedly shot the officer while he was off duty and outside his Northeast Baltimore home.
Summerfield Avenue and Todd Avenue for a report of a shooting.
911 calls coming in just before 3:30 Thursday afternoon sent officers racing to the scene where they learned the 43-year-old sergeant had been chatting with a neighbor on his front lawn. Two men pulled up. Investigators believe in an Acura. Commissioner Michael Harrison says that's when a wannabe robber got out and demanded the two men hand over property.
The neighbor threw what items of value he had to the ground and then began running. Sergeant Carrington began running in the opposite direction.
But the shooter followed, chasing Carrington, pulling the trigger again and again. Now, less than 24 hours later, a frantic search for the gunman and his getaway driver continues.
I'm begging and pleading with you now that we need you to step up, and we need those who are responsible for these type of crimes in the city of Baltimore to be held to the strictest penalty possible.
Mayor Jack Young begging for witnesses, and Governor Larry Hogan tweeting, "We ask that you keep this officer in your prayers as he fights for his life," going on to make a push for gun control and getting shooters off the streets, including the trigger puller who chased down this 22-year police veteran in daylight outside his house.
Things like these keep happening. I doubt if our police officers want to live here. So we can do better, Baltimore, and I'm counting on you to do better.
And overnight, a reward growing for information that could point police to a shooter. $19,000 now on the line. If you do have any information, Baltimore Police or the ATF would like to hear from you right away. Reporting live in Northeast Baltimore this morning, I'm Kimberly Eaton for WJZ.
As we mentioned, Sergeant Carrington was shot multiple times, sending him to the ICU where he is currently on life support. Mike Chu is live outside Shock Trauma with the very latest on this officer's condition. Mike?
Good morning, Lynn. The officer, when he was brought here, was awake, but doctors say he was quite unstable, but they took actions to change that. Quickly after paramedics answered the 911 call, they perform a rapid assessment and then transport.
We were also able to get the victim off the scene within a minute.
Sergeant Isaac Carrington arrives at Shock Trauma just before 4 o'clock Thursday. He has multiple gunshot wounds to his torso and extremities. Dr. Thomas Galea, who heads the trauma center, spoke with a heavy heart about yet another police officer who now becomes his patient.
It's been that long since we did this, and it's really very, very discouraging to be back here to have a similar conversation.
He says initially the sergeant was unstable.
Great pre-hospital job to get him to us in a very rapid amount of time to give us really a shot at this.
After his operation in the ICU, he's placed on life support. Dr. Scalia describes his current condition as slightly more stable. The next step is to run more tests to determine if there are any other injuries that are going to require additional treatment or therapy.
We're going to continue to do the absolute best we can to get him back to his family and his community in as good a shape as possible, as quickly as possible.
Now, Scalia thanked his team for their hard work and says that the sergeant, he has a long, long path to recovery. I'm Mike Chu reporting live at Shock Trauma for WJZ.
People we spoke with in the neighborhood where the shooting took place say the scene was chaotic at best. Some witnesses say they were trying to pick up their children from daycare as police were on the scene. They were shocked to hear Sergeant Carrington was the victim.
He lives across the street from me. He's always very pleasant, you know, and I can say that I feel safer knowing that we have him here. It's definitely a loss that, you know, he has gotten injured. I hope that he gets better soon.
As detectives combed the scene, parents waited for hours to pick up their children from daycare. And again, here's the latest, the very latest, in the robbery and shooting of that Baltimore City police officer. He is identified as Sergeant Isaac Carrington. He's 43 years old and a 22-year veteran of the force. Sergeant Carrington was shot multiple times during a robbery in Northeast Baltimore on Summerfield Avenue while off duty. He's currently in the ICU at shock trauma and is on life support. An intense search is now underway for the two suspects.